G'day there guys, and welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the Asshole? Let's go. Am I the asshole for not allowing my oldest daughter to use my home as her new wedding venue because her mother and family will be invited? I had a restraining order against them until recently. So I'm in a pretty bad situation right now. When my stepdaughter got married 2 years ago, she used our home as the wedding venue. We have a meadow in our backyard that is able to accommodate a large number of people, as well as an empty, clean barn that can be set up for dinner tables. My daughter was supposed to marry at another location last year, but because of the pandemic, the venue shut down permanently. She's now asked to use my home for the wedding, but I told her my issues with that. I had a restraining order against her mother, my ex, and a few members of her family after threats and harassment were directed towards my wife and myself. The restraining order expired mid-last year, but we haven't heard from them since, but I stayed firm in my decision. This has upset my daughter greatly, and she's screamed at me, which she has never done. I offered to give her $15,000 for an alternative venue, but now she's adamant about it being our home. I feel extremely uncomfortable giving my ex and her family access to my home, because that's where the washrooms will be. My daughter has put this issue on Facebook, and I now have all of my extended family against me. This has also stirred up my ex and her family against me. And worse is that my wife and stepdaughter are now being accused of trying to ruin my daughter's wedding when they haven't played any part in it. I'm planning on giving in and letting my daughter use our home for the wedding later this year, but I'm going to tell my wife and stepdaughter not to be around for it, which I'm sure is going to create a bunch of other issues. Am I the asshole? And now in the comments, whew, what a sticky wicket. Not the asshole under the circumstances. Recommendation, renting porta potties and maybe a commercial tent for the bride to get ready in for the day is relatively inexpensive and will ensure that nobody needs access to your home. And security for the house access perhaps, in addition to having some sort of bouncer for the outside activities in case these folks make a scene. Definitely not the asshole. Definitely some security cameras around the house. I'd do the porta potties and tent route and lock the house up on the day of. Also, OP, talk to your daughter. Does she feel a little neglected compared to the stepdaughter? Is there something more going on with her that made her unexpectedly scream like that? Did she know about the restraining order and the reason behind it? Someone else says to the original comment, no, this is bad advice. You were granted a restraining order against your ex and multiple family members. That means the court was convinced that these people were dangerous. Do not give in to your daughter's tantrum and allow dangerous people back into your physical proximity and property. Do not allow dangerous people access to your family. Your daughter can F right off forever, frankly, if she can't understand why she never should have had the audacity to ask this of you. She can F right off if she can't understand why you were refusing this request. Your family's safety is more important than your daughter's wedding. And edit to add, further down, OP mentions he's unwilling to try to get the RO reinstated because he wants to attend his daughter's wedding. That is delusional thinking. Do you really believe that you can show up to her wedding and the multiple people who behaved so badly that you had restraining orders out against them will just magically stay away from you and behave? Especially now that they're already being assholes again because your asshole daughter is having a tantrum. Do you realize that women die all the time, killed by the men they have active ROs against, but you think your ex et al. Are going to act like responsible people just because you're all at a wedding? You need to stop focusing on your daughter's overpriced party and start worrying about the safety of your wife and stepchildren. Allowing this wedding to be on your property is a really bad idea. If I were your wife, I would not stand for this, honestly. Are you kidding? Not the asshole. You kinda had a restraining order on 2 members, and you gave her an opportunity to find somewhere else. Why is she so adamant about your house? I would bet money on her mom laying it on her about how her father must prefer his stepdaughter and that sort of thing. Adult children can still be hurt and weaponized, particularly if there are any old wounds from childhood that can be picked at. I'm not saying OP did anything wrong. We don't know the story. But divorce and blended families can be hard on kids, especially if things get nasty between the parents, which the existence of a restraining order suggests they did. If she went far enough that there was a restraining order involved, I don't doubt that she'd use her daughter to cause more drama. As a kid who was constantly used as a weapon, yes, her mum is certainly telling her how much he must prefer his stepdaughter and that they are trying to push her out so they can have their perfect family without her. Mum is playing the victim. I really hope OP doesn't allow this, but I can also understand the fear of hurting his child. Not the asshole. Go renew the restraining order if your ex and her family are harassing you, and explain to your daughter that she can either have the wedding at your home without her mother and her side of the family, or she can accept the $15,000 and have it elsewhere. But for personal safety reasons, you will not let her mother into your home. Otherwise, rent porta potties. They have some super fancy ones for wedding venues. Trailers don't look or smell like porta potties with a washroom. And OP says, I won't be renewing the order because I don't have any real standing this time. I also don't want to renew it because I do want to attend my daughter's wedding without causing any issues. But the outdoor bathrooms are an excellent idea. I have texted the idea to my daughter. And back up to the post, update to my post. I messaged my daughter about the outdoor trailer bathrooms, and she has refused and said that it was a disgusting idea. She then accused me of treating her worse than my stepdaughter, and that I play favorites and that I'm a terrible father. She does not want the wedding at our home anymore and hung up. She is no longer picking up my calls. I got an angry call from my mother who says she is hosting her wedding instead, and that I will not be welcomed at the wedding. My father will be walking my daughter down the aisle instead of me. Thanks everyone for the advice. I appreciate it, but I feel like I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I'm completely heartbroken. And now onto the update. I've had many messages asking me for an update that I've only noticed after logging back into the account. I have a fairly positive update. My daughter's wedding took place in October of last year. After a few months of my daughter refusing to talk to me, my wife saw how I was being affected by the situation and said I should just let my daughter use our home without any restrictions, that we should lock up our valuables and hope for the best. I was extremely hesitant, but at my wife's insistence, I arranged a meeting at my mother's home and made the offer. I was immediately told that it was too late and that the new invitations were already sent out and the wedding would be happening at my mother's property. But my daughter asked for the $15,000 I originally offered for an alternative venue to be used to renovate my mother's home a little for the wedding. I just accepted that this was the best it was going to get and gave her the money. My daughter still didn't warm up to me after this and would only reply to the texts occasionally. Then a month before the wedding, I was told to come to the wedding without my wife. My daughter said that, similar to how my wife and I felt, her mother and some members of her maternal family felt uncomfortable being around us due to expired restraining order. She said she was willing to fight them to have her father at the wedding, but my wife, stepdaughter, and her husband were not invited. I was incredibly disappointed. I wanted to confront my daughter and potentially not go to the wedding at all if my wife wasn't invited, but my wife said that there was too much bad blood and I should just attend the wedding quietly for my daughter's sake. I ended up attending the wedding alone and left once dinner was done. While I got to see my daughter get married, my heart feels heavy that it was such a conflict-filled situation. Even having me walking her down the aisle became such a touchy subject that she just ended up having her half-brother walk her down the aisle instead. When I went to congratulate my daughter before I left, she angrily told me that she should have just eloped because of me and my ex, and that it's disgusting that her own parents ruined every aspect of her wedding, that she can't wait to build a life separate from everyone. I apologized and cried on my way home. A part of me is happy that my daughter's still somewhat talking to me, but I do regret putting her under so much stress. It is not her fault her parents can't get along. I'm just hopeful that we can slowly start repairing our relationship. And now in the comments, quote, "But my wife said there is too much bad blood and I should just attend the wedding quietly for my daughter's sake." That is very mature of your wife. And OP says, "She is an incredible person. But the really unfortunate part out of this whole situation has been the fallout that my wife and stepdaughter have to deal with. There's members of my family who think my wife played a part in not having our home made available for my daughter, even though I've repeatedly told them that she in fact pushed to let the wedding happen at our home. Even worse is that both my daughter and my stepdaughter's husband worked for my father. My son-in-law had to change companies because of how awkward the entire situation was, since my father was fully supporting my daughter. So my stepdaughter ended up moving 2 hours away, which has upset my wife greatly. I just keep thinking that if maybe we had just sucked it up for one day and just let the wedding happen at our home in the first place, we wouldn't be in this terrible situation. Maybe, but consider that the divorce and restraining order just compounds things, and a big, huge, ugly mess might have happened anyways with something else. This, and I have to believe that the restraining order wasn't put in place for nothing. I don't blame OP for not wanting them in his house. If his daughter wasn't such a dolt, she would understand that as well. I'm very confused about why your own parents and sister are on your daughter's/her mum's side in this situation. Is there information being left out? Regardless, I am sorry to hear about what you're going through. I hope things work out for the better with you and your daughter. And OP says, my parents despise my ex as much as I do, if not more. They contemplated getting a protection order against my ex at one point too, but they compensate by favoring my daughter to the extreme. My sister is miserable and likes to gossip with my ex. My parents and I do not have a relationship with my sister. She wasn't invited to the wedding. My mother is of the mindset that my daughter should come first over everybody else because her parents are divorced. I don't feel that's a healthy way to raise someone, but I can only control my actions. It's just dysfunctional family dynamics all round. What part of this update was positive? Your daughter threw a fit because you didn't want to invite people who harassed you and your family into your home, but she's perfectly fine taking your money, uninviting your wife and her family who have done nothing to her, and not letting you walk her down the aisle because her mother has a problem with it. Exactly what concessions did your ex make for the sake of her daughter's wedding? Doesn't sound like she fought for you to be there at all. Wanted the same myself. To me it sounds like the daughter sucked it up for one day for a free $15K. Takes $15K? F you, Dad, you ruined my wedding. Huh? Well, if it was ruined either way, there's no sense paying more for it. Our next post is titled, Would I be the asshole if I tell my dad his girlfriend can't come visit with him? I don't like my dad's girlfriend. At all. It's a combination of things. From my aunt telling me that she went into her room while staying with her and took her things, to the fact that her and my dad lived with me for a few months, grossly overstaying their welcome, and we really didn't even invite her, just my dad, without paying rent and directly disobeying our rules. She's a smoker, got mad when we said she couldn't smoke in the garage when the rules were already that she had to be outside. We then found cigarette butts in what was then the guest room. I, in no way, have hidden my distaste for her. I told my dad I don't approve of the relationship, while at the same time telling him truthfully that it's his choice and I do want him to be happy. I told him my feelings for her won't change, but I'll remain civil. After we had to kick the two of them out, my dad and I have since made up, he says he completely understands that they wanted to stay too long, he moved out of state, which is really only across the river. He now lives over an hour away and doesn't have a car or anything. I'm 8 months pregnant with my first child, and I want him to be able to visit, so I'm thinking of having him over for 3 to 7 days after my son is a few months old. I want time to get into a routine before I have extended visits with anyone, including but not limited to my dad. I'm thinking of buying him a Greyhound ticket, so he has a set period of time he can stay, but I will not buy a ticket for her. Even if my dad offers to buy her a ticket himself, I honestly do not want her in our house. She has no boundaries, and I don't feel comfortable with her. Would I be the asshole if I tell Dad she can't come? Now in the comments, not the asshole. For one, he already knows how you feel about her, and it's not like you just don't like her. You have legitimate reasons for not liking her. For another, it is not her grandbaby, so she really doesn't need to be the first to meet him. Finally, right after having a baby, it's not the time to have stressful people with boundary issues and who you don't trust around. Your father's relationship with his girlfriend is their business, not yours. But for your house, your rules. If people refuse to follow your rules for your house, then you don't have to invite them over again. Offer your father the opportunity to come over to your house by himself with the Greyhound tickets offer. If he refuses, then that's on him. At least you gave him the choice. Not the arsehole. This is going to be such a stressful time for you already, and at the very least, she has shown that she doesn't respect you or your home. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if your father refuses to come, but you shouldn't have to put up with her. Definitely not the arsehole. Setting boundaries and sticking to them is so important for maintaining healthy relationships. She crossed your boundaries on several occasions. It is your home, and you are fully in the right to only allow people who respect you into your home. Having a baby will be stressful and tiresome. You do not need the added stress of someone ignoring your rules around. Also, if she isn't respecting your smoking rules, there is no guarantee she would stop smoking in areas she shouldn't, despite you having a newborn. And now onto the update. This is a very short update to a post I made a year ago. My dad didn't argue when I asked him not to bring her for visits, and even understood when I told him he wouldn't be getting a +1 for my wedding, which hasn't happened yet. But he also didn't come down to visit, which I completely understand, and I don't blame him for, since I did ban his significant other. My dad finally came and visited us this Christmas after not seeing him for a very long time. As for the girlfriend, she couldn't come because, well, she died. I didn't like her, but I didn't wish her dead. I feel awful for my dad, who is grieving right now. He's moved in with my older brother, who only lives a 5-minute drive from my house. There is not too much more to say, I guess. Rest in peace. And now in the comments, I didn't know what to expect when I opened this, but it sure wasn't this. My thoughts exactly. Is it bad that I laughed at RIP at the end of the post? That was a plot twist and a half. Sometimes these updates are just beyond Am I the Arsehole's control. Isn't there a saying, life finds a way? Wait, I'm cutting out a lot of my giggles here, I can't do this. Oh, this is very difficult. I hope you and your dad are able to work out a reasonable relationship over time. It sounded like you wanted your child to know him, and hopefully he will be able to accept that opportunity. Best wishes to you and your family. Wow, this really sucks. I am sorry for you and with your dad. Hopefully you'll be able to be close again. He might need that. And OP replies, that's exactly why my brother and I convinced him to come back. He wants to be able to support him, and hopefully he'll be able to settle down here permanently. Good for you. It sounds like you're handling this with a lot of grace. Best of luck to all of you. Tell your dad what you just told us. Time's a wasting. There is no guarantee of tomorrow, so make every minute count. And OP says, I have told him. He stayed with us Christmas weekend before he moved in with my brother. I love my dad and he knows it. We definitely need to work on rebuilding our relationship since he's been gone so long, but my kids already love him and I'm really happy he's back. Do you think you can have a civil relationship with your dad at this point? Yeah. My dad and I get along great. He moved in with my brother recently, but before that, he came to stay with me the weekend of Christmas. For context, she passed away a week before Christmas Eve. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. That is a very grim way for this story to have gone, and I hope OP's father can recover from this grief. That sounds quite traumatic to have gone through, I'm not going to lie. I've got a mixed bag of emotions going on about this one. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think that should have been the way this was resolved, but it happened. It is unfortunate that she died. I don't think this is the best outcome in this situation. This is quite tragic, if I'm honest. I really don't have too much to add to that. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.